Good morning, everyone. A lot of glare. Hold on one second. Okay. Okay, Mishna is Meiser Sheni, Perek Beis, Chapter 2, Mishna Vav, Mishna 6. Sela Shamaiser Sheni V'shal Chulin Shenis Arvu. A sela is a silver coin that existed in the times of the Mishnah, and it was made of, like I said, it was a silver coin. And in this case, you have one sela of Meiser Sheni. That means that the produce of the Meiser Sheni, the sanctity from it was transferred onto this sela. So you've got one sela of Meiser Sheni and one of Chulin, one without any sanctity, and they both got mixed up together. Exact same coin. I don't know which one is the Meiser Sheni one, which one is the Chulin one. Says the Mishnah, maybe besela ma'is v'omer. You bring a sela of ma'is. Ma'is means copper coins. So you bring a sela worth of copper coins, and you say, Stela shel Meiser Sheni v'chamakim shehi. The Meiser Sheni sela, which wherever it may be, meaning of these two slayim that you have, whichever one is the Meiser Sheni one, v'chulelas ala ma'is ha'elu. The sanctity, the Meiser Sheni sanctity, should be transferred from it to these copper coins. Ubayr es hayafa behen. Then you take the nicer of the two coins. Nicer means because as coins were used, they became rubbed out and lost some of their silver. So therefore, the nicer one is the one that has the more silver content. You then take the nicer one of the two, umachalon oleha, and then you transfer the sanctity from the copper coins onto it. Okay, so let's elaborate. You've got the two coins. You have two sela coins, two silver sloim, two silver selas. One is Meiser Sheni, one is Chulin, they mix together, and we don't know which one is which. Now, essentially, if you wanted to take both and treat them both like Meiser Sheni, take it to Yerushalayim and spend it on food, and treat the food like Meiser Sheni food, for whatever you spent both sloim on, you could do that if you wanted to. But if you don't want to do that because you want to use one of the sloim outside of Yerushalayim, because the Meiser Sheni sela, you can only use it in Yerushalayim. That's the law of using Meiser Sheni. If one of them is Chulin, you can use that anywhere. So if you want to use that sela anywhere, so this is the solution to figure out, to deal with the two sloim that got mixed together. So what do? You transfer you say that whichever sela is Meiser Sheni, its sanctity should be transferred onto these copper coins. Bartanura says these copper coins are valid, usable copper coins. They're the only ones you can use to transfer your sanctity of Meiser Sheni onto. That means they have an image on them. The image is still there. So these are Meiser Sheni copper coins. These are copper coins that you can transfer the Meiser Sheni money onto. And once you've done that, once you've transferred the Meiser Sheni money onto the copper coins, so then both of these silver slime, are not sanctified. Whichever one was Meiser Sheni, its sanctity is transferred onto the copper coin. So now you really have two slime that are chulin. Okay? But the Mishnah says you don't stop there. You don't just take the copper money and take it to Yerushalayim and spend it in Yerushalayim. But rather, you again transfer the copper, the sanctity of the Meiser Sheni of the copper coins onto the better one of the two sloim. The one of the two sloim that has more silver content to it, hasn't become rubbed out and lost some of its silver. That's the one that you now take and transfer the sanctity from the copper coins back onto a silver coin. Why are you doing that? Says the Mishnah. Because the sages said, we can be machal kesef, we can transfer the sanctity from silver onto copper when we're forced to. Meaning when we don't have another option, that is when we are allowed to transfer the sanctity of Meiser Sheni from a silver coin onto a copper coin. Typically, we cannot. And that's because it's considered disrespectful to the sanctity of the Meiser Sheni, which is on the silver coin, when you transfer to a coin that is less valuable, like the copper coin. But if you don't have a choice, as in our Mishnah, then you can. But even when you can, not that it should remain that way, but rather you take the copper coins with the Meiser Sheni sanctity and you transfer it back onto silver. So if you need to, if you have to, you can do the transfer from silver onto copper, but it's not supposed to stay on the copper. It's supposed to go from the copper back until the silver. That is more respectful to the sanctity of Meiser Sheni than it should be on the more valuable coin. Now, the obvious question here is, why do I have to go from the silver to the copper back onto the silver? Why not go from the silver to the silver? Of the two, I have two sloyim. One is Meiser Sheni, one's chulin. And I should say, okay, you should pick the nicer one, right? We always want the nicer one to be the one that ends up having the Meiser Sheni sanctity on it. Take the nicer one and say, if this one is Meiser Sheni, good. If it's not Meiser Sheni, the other one is, let the sanctity of Meiser Sheni from that silver coin go out to this silver coin. And you've solved everything. Why do you have to go through the copper coins for? So the Bartanur explains, because the sages were concerned, if basically what you can do is choose one of these two silver coins, you may do that and forget to do the transferring. And then it could come out that the coin that you took was the chulin coin, and the other coin was the Meiser Sheni coin. You're not going to use it properly. And therefore they said, you can't just switch one coin for the other. Rather, you have to go to a different coin. And when you go to a different coin, that's going to be obvious to you. You're going to be transferring that you're transferring. That's not the Meiser Sheni. You know a silver coin was a Meiser Sheni. So now when you have to transfer it onto the copper, now that you can't do it within the silver coins, got to get to the copper coin, then you know you have to transfer it. And once you've gone through this process of transferring, we're not afraid that you're going to forget then to transfer the copper back into the silver. You've gone through this very complicated process. You realize, and you're going to remember that this is a different kind of situation. And therefore, at the end of the day, when you go from silver to copper back to silver, everything is taken care of. And this is the situation where we say you have to transfer it onto the copper because, as we say, if you just transfer from the silver to the silver, if you could do that, we're afraid you'll forget to do the transfer. You'll just take one. You'll say that's the Meiser Sheni one. Forget to do the transfer in case it's not. Then you'll misuse the Meiser Sheni one. Therefore, you need to go from silver to copper, but you can't stay that way. It's got to go back from copper to silver. We are in the third chapter of the Chavetz Chaim, Halacha Beis, paragraph 2. Now, the Chavetz Chaim had just said that speaking Lashon Harah in front of someone does it not make a Lashon Harah. It's still the prohibition of Lashon Harah. Now, that which we find sometimes a leniency or a license in the words of Chazal, that we find that it's not considered Lashon Harah if you were to say this in front of this person. That sounds like that's the idea. That's the concept. The concept is that we find in the Gemara that if you would say this in front of a person, that's not Lashon Harah. That sounds like if I say Lashon Harah in front of to a person's face, it's not. Excuse me. It's not Lashon Harah. Says the Chavetz Chaim, that's not what it's talking about. Rather, Lashon Harah. This is talking specifically about something that's called avak Lashon Harah, a dusting of Lashon Harah, which means a statement that in itself is not derogatory, but it has derogatory connotations, possibly derogatory connotations. V'dibra la v'lishna, and this means you made a statement about, you're going to make a statement about a person, the mishtama l'trei api. It could be understood in two ways. It can be understood negative. It can be considered. It can be benign. If we can interpret the word, we can interpret the words in one way that there would be nothing derogatory in it. The inyan kazeh yadua shetol lefi ratzon ha'omer. That will depend on the desire of the person who's about to say this. Lefi amira b'shas ma'aseh, and the way he says it. If he wants, we can make this statement in a very easy, light way. His mannerisms are regular. In a way that between the tone of his voice, his body language, it will not, making the statement will not imply anything derogatory about his friend. But if he wants to, if you want to, you could express it in a way that you will imply that there is something negative here. That's very hard to measure, meaning you're about to make a statement. This is a statement that can be understood in either a negative way or a benign way. How are you supposed to figure out if this statement would be permissible or not to say? Does it have the negative implications or not? That's where our sages said that if the way you're going to say this, this would be something, this statement, in the manner that you're saying it, you would not be embarrassed to say that in front of someone, in front of that person, rather. Then that means that these words have no intent of anything negative, and therefore you can say it. That's your measuring stick. The measuring stick is, would I be willing to say this about so-and-so in front of him? If I know that I would, that means that the manner I'm doing it, there's no negative connotation to it. But if, let's say, from your movements, from your language, from your expression, it is recognizable that there is a negative connotation here, and then the nature of people is to be embarrassed, to be uncomfortable, making such a statement in front of their friends. Even if at the end of the day, if it would be a negative statement, it would only be a dusting of Lashon Harah. It would not be a statement of actual that he did of stating he did something wrong. It has a negative connotation, but even with that negative connotation, it's not that you're saying he did something wrong. And even if it's true, and you know that you would be willing to say that in front of someone else's face, unless it's forbidden. It doesn't help that, I would say this, because if you couldn't care less what you say in front of someone, that means even if it's negative, you're going to say it. That doesn't work. You have to measure what the way you're making the statement, how most people would react. Would most people be comfortable to say it in this manner or not? If they wouldn't be comfortable, it makes no difference if you would say it anyway. It makes a difference if it's true. And it makes no difference if even the statement, you're not saying he did something wrong. It has a negative connotation when you say he did something wrong. The example that we had about this before was a person's looking for, this is an example of the Gemara. A person is looking for a fire. It's late at night. Where can I get a fire? So somebody says, in that house, they're always cooking. You'll find a fire. In that house, they're always cooking. Okay. So now you could say, in that house, they're always cooking. If that's okay, if you're not uncomfortable saying that in front of someone, there's not enough connotation. But let's say you say, in that house, they're always cooking. Now, which would have a connotation of they're always eating a lot, all times in the day. Now, if that would be the connotation, if that's true, that they're doing that, are they doing something wrong? No, but you're making fun of them. That's the negative part. And therefore, that's what's called the dusting of Lashon Harah. And again, if people typically would not be comfortable saying that in front of someone because you are putting them down, even if you would, because you're the kind of guy that says the kinds of things, you're the kind of person that says these kinds of things anyway, that doesn't make it permissible. It would still be Lashon Harah. Have a wonderful day and a happy Hanukkah.